Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for the Udall Scholarship Information Session. My name is Shay Masterson with the Office of National Scholarships Advisement, and I'm so excited to share with you about this wonderful opportunity today. I would like to begin with an agenda. So for those of you who might not be knowledgeable about ONSA already, or the Office of National Scholarships Advisement, we're going to start with just a brief overview of what our office is and the support we provide. Then we'll spend the bulk of the time breaking down the Udall undergraduate scholarship, the benefits, the eligibility, as well as the application process and the support our office provides through that process. We will wrap up with some general tips and suggestions as you work on the application itself, if you decide to apply this year or in a future cycle. So to begin with, the Office of National Scholarships Advisement is a department here at ASU that provides support to ASU students and alumni in pursuing a number of external awards that provide opportunities like studying abroad, research, language learning, internships, graduate studies. So lots of really amazing life-changing experiences are provided by the types of scholarships or fellowships that we advise on. And our office provides individual guidance and support to students and alumni who are exploring what those options might be. And then once anybody has decided to apply for any one or multiple awards that we advise on, we give that guidance and support through the application process, which includes answering questions, giving suggestions and tips on how to approach the application, and really spending a bulk of our time doing writing instruction. So all of these awards, including Udall, which we'll talk about today, will require some form of written components from each applicant. Sometimes it's one essay, sometimes it's two essays, sometimes it's a bunch of short essays. In the case of Udall, it's a combination. So a bulk of our time is spent giving guidance and suggestions on how to approach these kinds of statements. We do that through information sessions and workshops, and through individual and small group advising, through our Canvas portal. Sometimes it's regarding specific awards, and sometimes it's about applying to fellowships in general, like our Fellowship Fridays series, which will be coming up in February. And then we give feedback on written materials. So as you work on your application materials for Udall or any of the other awards our office advises on, we will read what you've written and give you feedback on where to go from there to make the written portions of your application as strong as possible before you submit them. If you apply for a national scholarship or fellowship that has an interview component and you're selected to be interviewed, then our office would also help you prepare for that interview. Again, giving general guidance, but also doing mock interviews with you and giving you feedback based on how you performed in the mock interviews. The Udall Scholarship doesn't have an interview component, but many of the awards we advise on do, so I like to include that here. So in general, our office is here to just support and guide you in all things national scholarships and fellowships, from the beginning stage of exploring options through the application process and beyond. That's what our office is here to do for you. Let's jump into the Udall Scholarship now, and to start talking about the scholarship, I like to preface it with a little bit of information about the background on that particular scholarship and the name of that scholarship. So in this case, the Udall brothers, who the Udall Scholarship and more importantly, the Udall Foundation are named for, were two brothers from Arizona who eventually became lawyers and then local and national political leaders. They were both congressmen at one point in time, and one went on to be the Secretary of Interior as well. So both of the Udall brothers were very influential and impactful in government and politics and policy. And there were two areas that were really main focuses for a lot of the work that they did. They were both they both held these two areas in very high regard and wanted to have as positive impact through the policy and the work that they did as possible. So the two areas they focused a lot of their work on, the legislation, the research that they did, the speeches that they gave, the articles and books that they wrote, were things regarding the nation's environment, natural resources, national parks, as well as things relevant to the rights and self-governance of American Indians and Alaskan Natives. So in honor of the Udall brothers, back in 1992, the U.S. Congress established the Udall Foundation, first to honor Morris Udall's or Mo Udall's impact in these two areas. And then later on in 2009, there was additional legislation to pass to include Stuart Udall into the name of the foundation and honoring his legacy as well. You'll also see in the Udall logo the words civility, integrity, and consensus. So these were three values that were guiding forces in all of the work that the Udall brothers did and all of the work that the Udall Foundation does. And they'll be very important as you work through the Udall scholarship application as well. Just a little bit of background on the foundation and the scholarship. If you ultimately become a Udall scholar, having a little bit of knowledge about what that means in terms of the name. So if you ultimately become a Udall scholar, these are the benefits that you would receive as one of the few luckies who get selected. So every Udall scholar is eligible for up to $7,000 to cover academic expenses for the following academic year. So if you apply this year, you would be eligible to receive the scholarship. You would be eligible to get $7,000 for the next academic year, the 2025-2026 academic year. We say up to because not everybody is going to have that much unmet need in eligible academic expenses. So you, as a scholar, you might end up receiving less than that based on your need, but that's the total amount you could receive. Every scholar is required to attend the Udall Scholar Orientation in Tucson, Arizona. Again, the Udall brothers were from Arizona, so while this is a national scholarship, it's also one that is based out of the local area of Arizona. So the Udall Scholar Orientation takes place in Tucson, Arizona every year at the beginning of August. It's a 4-day conference where they bring together all of the scholars for essentially like a leadership and networking conference. So everybody has to attend that. Expenses are covered for travel to and from the conference as well as while you're there. And if you cannot attend the orientation, then you will not be able to receive the scholarship either. And last but not least, everyone also gains access to the Udall Alumni Network, which at this point is nearly 30 years worth of folks who have been named Udall scholars at some point. And so they're individuals who are now out there doing the things that they said they wanted to do or that they thought that they wanted to do back when they became Udall scholars. Folks who are working in issues relevant to the environment and issues relevant to Native American and Alaska Natives. So that alumni network has been really valuable to scholars in finding mentors, finding internships, as you advance along your career path and kind of navigating what that may look like for you in your chosen field. So we really can't kind of underscore the value that's added by that alumni network. Every year, Udall names 55 scholars from the national applicant pool. Those are the folks that receive all of the benefits that we just went through on the previous page. In addition, they also name 55 honorable mentions. They've decided that while they only have enough funding to actually choose 55 scholars each year, they get so many great applications that they really there's always many more than that 55 that are really doing great things and have great potential for the future, and they want to give some kind of recognition and support to them without having the ability to give them the full financial support. So if you're named in one of the 55 honorable mentions for Udall, then that means that they're recognizing the good work that you're doing and want to do in the future, and you also gain access to the Udall Alumni Network. So that last but not least benefit of being a Udall Scholar, you would also gain that benefit if you were a Udall Honorable Mention. Each year, ASU and every university or college that is nominating students for the scholarship are able to nominate up to 4 students in the environment track and up to 4 students in the Indian country track. So remember the Udall brothers, a lot of their work was focused on having a positive impact in either the nation's environment or issues relevant to Native Americans and their rights and self-governance. So they divide this up into 2 different tracks is what they call them. And each university, including ASU, can nominate up to 4 students from each track each year. So that means in any given year, we're able to nominate a total of 8 students from the university, 4 from each side. ASU is what we call a top performer in the Udall Scholarship and has been since its inception. Nearly every year that the Udall Scholarship has been in existence, at least one student, and sometimes more, has been named from ASU as a scholar, and oftentimes there's honorable mentions as well. So in the past nearly 30 years, ASU's had a total of 148 nominees. We haven't nominated a total of 8 every single year, but in total, we've had 148 nominees from the university. 42 of those nominees have been named scholars. So that's about 30% selection rate from ASU specifically, which with these kinds of awards is pretty impressive. Then 17 of those nominees have been named honorable mentions, which is also no small feat. And just want to point out that oftentimes, so we're going to get to the eligibility in a moment. This award is open to sophomores and juniors. And oftentimes we have sophomores apply and maybe they're not selected or they're named an honorable mention, and then they reapply the next year and are selected. So as you can see on the screen right now, a couple of years ago, we had a scholar in the Native Healthcare track, Dylan Bia, from the Navajo Nation. He was named a scholar in 2022. The previous year, he was named an honorable mention. On the home screen of the presentation, we had Ethan Tasheen, who was a Udall Scholar this past year, and the previous year, he was Udall Honorable Mention. So you often see that happen with this scholarship and other scholarships that are open to folks during multiple years. So to be eligible for the Udall Scholarship, regardless of what track you're applying in, you do have to be a second or third year undergraduate student. To be a to qualify as a second year undergraduate student, that means you cannot be in your first year at university or college, even if you have credits from dual enrollment or AP that make you sophomore level status or junior level status. You do have to have spent already a full year previously at a college or university. You can be a transfer student, so that can be at a previous college or university than ASU, and it could be your first year at ASU, but you do have to have been at the college or university level for one full year previous to the year that you were applying. And to qualify as a third year student, that means that you have to have at least one full academic year remaining after this year for your undergraduate studies. So you can't be graduating this year in terms of May of this year or December of this year to qualify as a third year. You have to be graduating in at least May of next year to qualify under that category. So that hopefully that clarifies and makes you understand if you would qualify as a second or third year, because I know sometimes the actual number of years where an undergraduate student can vary. Everybody who applies also has to be either a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or permanent resident. This is a congressionally funded foundation and therefore a scholarship, so that is a requirement that they place on it. Then the eligibility diverges from here slightly. If you want to apply as a student who is interested in tribal public policy or Native healthcare, then you have to have a demonstrated commitment to and career interest in issues relevant to Indian country or Native American populations, whether that be your tribe or Native Americans and Alaska Natives at large. It can be through policy, through healthcare, through a number of different ways, but you ultimately are already involved in issues relevant to Native Americans and want to continue throughout your career to have a positive impact on Native American communities. The other track, you have to have a demonstrated commitment to and an interest in a career revolving around the environment. So that can be any component of environment. It can be policy or research or administration oriented, nonprofit or private sector. It doesn't matter, but as long as the issues that you want to have an impact on are regarding the environment and having a positive impact on the environment, that's what qualifies you in that track. If you are applying for the tribal public policy or Native healthcare track, you also have to be a registered member of a federally recognized Native American or Alaska Native tribe. So even if you're doing work revolving around Native American issues, and that's what you want to continue to do, but you are yourself not a registered member of one of those federally recognized tribes, you would not be eligible under that track. If you want to do work in the environmental section, whether you're a registered member of a federally recognized Native American tribe or not, you would be eligible, okay? So sometimes there's, students who have an interest that could qualify in both categories. And then it becomes, well, are you a registered member of a tribe or not? And that can be the deciding factor of which track you would apply under. So that is the eligibility. There's no minimum GPA, although if you're not in good academic standing, that would probably not be well suited for you to apply for the scholarship at this time. They do have a general average of their scholars that they post on their website, but logistically speaking, there is no minimum GPA requirement. If you're going to apply for the Udall scholarship, you've determined you're eligible for it. And if you have further questions about whether you're eligible or not, we're happy to talk through that with you. But once you've determined that you are eligible this year and you're ready to apply, here's the components of the application you'll have to submit. First of all, there's the basic demographic, education, and extracurricular background information. You do not submit a resume as part of this application, but pretty much everything that you would put on your resume, there is a part of the application where you would list that information out with some detail. There are also multiple short answer questions that have to do with your career and professional goals, research experience you have up until this point, if applicable. You do not have to have research experience, but if you do, there is a question about that. They also want to hear about your leadership and service experience, as well as your commitment to the field in which the track you're applying for. Okay, so commitment to tribal policy, commitment to Native healthcare, or commitment to the environment. There's also a values essay. So earlier on the Udall Foundation page, I mentioned the 3 values: civility, integrity, and consensus. There is a long essay where you talk about what those values mean to you and how you've displayed them so far in your life and how they will inform the work that you want to do in the future. And then there's some supplementary documents that won't be a part of the application portal that you'll submit, but they will need to be submitted separately. There are 3 letters of recommendation that are required for the Udall scholarship from 3 different individuals, not personal family friends or anything like that. These should be academic, leadership, service oriented. Ideally, some folks who can speak to your commitment and interest in the particular field that you're applying under, even if it's not relevant to your major, it does not have to be, but if you've done extracurricular activities or research activities or job activities or anything like that, professors, advisors, mentors, supervisors, those kinds of folks are the ones that will provide your letters of recommendation. And you do require 3 of them for this application. You also need to submit unofficial transcripts from all universities and colleges attended. So of course your ASU unofficial transcripts will be included. Even if this is your first semester at ASU, you'll still include those unofficial transcripts which show your enrolled status. And if you've attended previous colleges or universities, again, not for dual enrollment while you were in high school, but as just a standalone college or university student, you'll also want to include unofficial transcripts from those institutions. And if you're, last but not least, if you're applying in the Native American healthcare or tribal policy tracks, then you will need to supply some kind of enrollment verification for your tribal registration. Those supplementary documents get submitted directly to our office to be included with your application for the scholarship. So if you'd like to apply, here are your kind of next steps and complete steps in order. First, you do need to meet with ONSA. You will not be able to access the application portal, which is where you have to submit your essays and your background information and all of that. You cannot access that on your own. You have to be registered in that portal by our office. So the starting point is meeting with our office for the application. Once you've done that, you want to start drafting and revising your written components, so short essays and the long essay, as well as your background information. You want to request your recommendations and then submit your application for review by the campus deadline. You'll see on here the campus deadline is February 18th, 2025. So that's for this current year. The campus deadline is February 18th because, again, we can only nominate up to 4 from each category. So you have to submit everything by that date so that after the campus deadline, a campus committee will convene to, from that applicant pool, select up to 4 nominees from each track and then provide feedback. All of your supplementary documents, that means your unofficial transcripts, your tribal verification, and your letters of recommendation, are also due and must be submitted to ONSA by that campus deadline as well. So to be considered for nomination, everything has to be submitted by February 18th. Once the campus deadline has passed, again, the campus committee will meet. They will select the nominees and provide feedback. So whether you're selected or not, you'll receive some feedback from the campus committee. If you are selected as a nominee, you'll then have time to finalize your application and resubmit it for national review. Once you resubmit, ASU then submits your application to the foundation along with those supplementary documents. So that deadline for you is March 4th. Please note, both of these dates are different and earlier than what you'll notice on the Udall website. That's because, again, once you submit your application after you've been nominated, ASU then actually has to submit it with the supplementary documents to the foundation. So both of these dates are earlier, and it's important that you note that so that if you start looking at the Udall website, you're not getting caught up in the date that they list, which is March 5th. Okay, everything has to be done before then so that we have time to do our part of it in ONSA. So as you approach the application, here are the things that are important to keep in mind. They're really looking for you to, through your written responses, through your letters of recommendation, to show them that you have the potential to be a leader in the field that you've chosen. They also want to see that you, so far to this point, have shown that service to others, especially, although not necessarily only in the realm of the track that you're applying in, has been something that you have demonstrated through things that you've been involved with to this point. And they want it to be very clear that you're not just saying in the future you want to work on environmental issues, but that you have already shown a commitment to that to this point in time. So being involved in activities that are relevant to the particular track that you're applying under. They do want to hear about a career path that you've chosen, not just I want to have an environmental focused career, but they do want to hear something a little bit more specific. This does not mean that you have to have a 100% nailed down, decided on 5, 10, 20-year career plan. You know exactly what you're going to do in every step along the way. But they do want to know that you have an idea of the kind of impact you want to have in your career, and that you've given to some thought to some of the ways you think that you might be able to have that impact in the future, and the steps that you might need to take to that point to have that kind of career. Okay, so when we say an articulated career path, that's what we mean. You do not have to have absolutely everything figured out right now. And if you do have everything figured out, it's also okay if it changes in the future, but they want to see what you've thought about so far. And it's also important as you approach this application to not forget who the scholarship is honoring. Okay, so this is the Udall Undergraduate Scholarship. I gave you a basic, very, very basic introduction to who the Udall brothers are and the guiding principles of the Udall Foundation and the Udall Scholarship. It's important as you work through this application that you not forget that. It will be important that the idea of the Udall brothers and at least the work that they did and the legacy that they left has come through in some way in your application materials. So here's some advice on your written portions. Before you begin writing, I recommend that you spend a little bit of time reading up on the Udall brothers. On the Udall website, there is a link to resources about the Udall brothers, about their lives, about the impact that they had, about the work that they did. So you don't have to do a deep dive into everything they've ever done. You don't have to read every piece of written work they ever wrote, but read up a little bit about the things that they did, the things that were important to them, the roles that they held during their life before you approach the application. I also want you to spend some time really thinking deeply and reflecting on the 3 values of civility, integrity, and consensus. Kind of define them for yourself. What do you think each one of these means in your own life from your own perspective? There's also a Canvas page that once you meet with our office, we'll give you access to, and there's some guidance and examples of the written portions in that Canvas page. I want you to spend some time reviewing those. Then once you've done all that, I suggest you brainstorm. I still don't want you to write yet. I want you to brainstorm. And as you brainstorm, I want you to think of ways that so far in your life, how you kind of approach problems, how you approach group settings, how you approach new environments, new challenges. And think about, are there any ways that you've led to positive solutions or outcomes in challenges or problems that you face, whether that be in the classroom, in a club or organization you're involved in your job, in your volunteer experience, in your work experience, in any form or fashion. Think of the ways that you have been a part of finding positive solutions to problems or challenges. Once you've done all of this, then I suggest you free write about each of the prompts. Just spend 1 to 2 minutes on each item that you brainstormed, free writing, without really thinking about it, without worrying about grammar and punctuation, without worrying about, is this a good introduction? Does this fit with everything else? Am I being repetition? Don't worry about any of that. Just free write. Set a timer for 1 to 2 minutes and free write on each item that you've brainstormed. Once you've done all of that, now begin drafting your short answers and essay. Okay? And once you have begun drafting those, email those to ONSA for feedback, schedule an appointment with ONSA for feedback, and it doesn't matter if your first draft is polished. It doesn't matter if your first draft has gaps. It doesn't matter if you have a first draft of every written component of the application. The sooner you send us something, the better able we are to support you in taking it to where it needs to be before you submit. And I do recommend planning to go through at least a few revisions of what you've written for this application. This is not the kind of scholarship where you can sit down the night before the deadline, begin writing, submit it, and have an application that is strong enough to be considered. Okay? Trust me, I know from experience. With your letters of recommendation, again, you're required to have 3. We recommend that you make that ask to the folks that you want to write those letters at least 3 to 4 weeks in advance. So since the campus deadline is February 18th, that means that you really should be making that within the next week, okay? Making those requests within the next week if you haven't already, okay? When you ask those folks, ask them in such a way that they have the option to say no to you if that's what they want to do. Trust me, if they're wanting to say no, you want them to. I know it might feel daunting or it might make you feel a little rejected. It shouldn't. People say no to writing a letter for all kinds of reasons that don't have anything to do with you being a strong candidate. Okay. But if they're not wanting to say yes, you really want them to say no, because maybe maybe that's not in their wheelhouse to write a strong letter. Maybe they just don't have time in the next 3 to 4 weeks to write you a letter. Maybe they don't feel like they've seen you enough to be able to write a strong enough letter for this kind of opportunity. Whatever the case is, they want to let them say no. And then once they have said yes, make sure to provide them with all the pertinent information, not just when the deadline is and how to submit their letter, but also information about why you're applying. Share with them your resume. Share with them drafts of what you've written for the application. Share with them what you think your plans are for the future. Share with them what your motivation is for applying for the Udall scholarship, right? The more information you can provide them about you, the better they'll be able to write your letter of recommendation. And then don't just get the confirmation from them and forget about talking to them until after the deadline. Follow up with them. Unless they've given you a specific date that they're going to submit by or told you, hey, give me a reminder on this date, follow up with them, maybe a week before, maybe a couple days before, right? Don't just go radio silent until after the deadline. Life happens, right? They're juggling a lot of things just as you are. So make sure to give them some gentle reminders along the way, and then follow up and thank them once the deadline has passed and they submitted your letter. And then once you find out from the scholarship whether you've been selected or not, make sure to let them know what the outcome was. Okay, even if it was, I didn't get nominated, or I didn't get honorable mention, or I didn't become a scholar, still let them know they're not going to be disappointed in you. They may be disappointed with you, right? They probably wanted it for you just as much as you wanted it for yourself, or maybe close to, but they're not going to be upset with you that you didn't get it, but they do want to hear about what happened. Okay. So as you move forward, please feel free to email me, Shay Masterson, at any time. You can schedule an appointment with me to get started with the application process by going to our website, onsa.asu.edu. And for more information about the Udall Scholarship and about the Udall Brothers, you can go to the Udall Scholarship website. I have the full link here, but you can also get to there by going to udall.gov. Okay. Thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to hearing from all of you and supporting you through the application process.